Welcome to the KISC My Health Radio show series on Building Fortunes Radio. KISC My Health is brought to you by the universally recognized Cranberry King, Captain Cranman, Stephen Lukowski. Over the past 30 years, Stephen has worked with North American dietary supplement companies in the nutraceutical industry. His efforts and connections generate ingredient sales through innovative delivery systems and effective marketing and brand management strategies. Today on KISC My Health, Stephen is joined by guest host Peter Mingles. Make sure you check out previous KISC My Health episodes at www.buildingfortunesradio.com or KISCMyHealth.com. Along with our marketing partners, we are here to help our customers improve their health, build their businesses, and make the world a better place. At KISC My Health, we know how much your health and your business means to you and the people important to you. So spread the word, tell another friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world. Now, on to our show with your hosts, Captain Cranman and Peter Mingles. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingles here. You are listening to the KISC My Health Radio show with Stephen Lukowski. And again, my name is Peter Mingles. For all those people that are unfamiliar with this, I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief rundown because I think the origin of the KISC My Health Radio show is kind of interesting. It started off a long time ago with a gentleman named Attorney Jim Turner. He was one of the first radio show guest speakers that we had when we started Building Fortunes Radio. Jim was an attorney over in Washington, D.C. He was one of the original Ralph Nader Raiders, and overall a really super good guy. Ran an organization called Citizens for Health. Citizens.org is still their domain name. And we did about a decade's worth of radio shows until he passed away. And when he passed away, it left a hole in my heart. I'm telling you, I lost a mentor. I would ask Jim a lot of questions, and he passed away in January of 2022, so we dealt with a lot of the COVID things and a lot of the vaccine things and health and nutrition and homeopathy and a whole bunch of other things as well. So I really was kind of, there was a hole in the Building Fortunes Radio Network, and I asked the people over at Citizens, please find me a replacement, and it took them over a year. I played replays, but they finally found for me a gentleman whose name is James Gormley. James was a publisher, a great guy, fantastic speaker, wrote some books, lots of articles, took over as the president for Citizens for Health, and we did a couple of radio shows together, kind of got familiar with each other's style. Then he asked me, he said, can I bring on a guest? And I said, sure. Who do you want to bring on? And he said, a gentleman named Stephen Lukowski. He's the king of cranberries, Captain Cranman. And I said, I've never heard of Stephen before. Now, I know that's hard for this listening audience to believe, but I was an outsider. And I said, I don't know who Stephen is, so you guys are going to have to do the radio show interview, and I'm interested in learning. And when he did that, I found that Stephen was a really good guy, and he knew a lot about cranberries. I was like, I never knew I'd be so interested in cranberries. Maybe we should start using more of them. And then I said, he had a LinkedIn. So I joined his LinkedIn. I recommend that you do that too. So as he was posting throughout the next year, I was kind of watching his posts. I'm like, Stephen's a good guy, and I would see that he's promoting a whole bunch of really great things. Like he's one of the people that make a difference in the world. And then all of a sudden in August of 2024, James Gormley suddenly passed away. Well, that started this KISC My Health radio show because I called Stephen, and he had known as well. He was working with them right then and there as well. And when we started speaking, Stephen said, we, of course, have to do like a memorial radio show for James Gormley. I said, I agree. Somewhere in the conversation as we were speaking, I mentioned something about our KISC training, KISC, and KISC for me stands for the Keep It Simple Circle. My background was in direct sales management. I used to teach a lot of people different things, still do, and KISC was something that I mentioned, and Stephen jumped on top of that, and he says, you know what we're going to do? I said, nope, Stephen, what are we going to do? Besides the memorial for James, what else? He said, we're going to run KISC My Health. And I said, okay. It's because I didn't know where he was going with this. And he said, I know a ton of people who need to be known. They are still alive. They make a difference in this world. And why don't we call it KISC My Health? and I'll interview them, and we'll put them up on the radio show, and we'll see how it goes. Well, 100-plus radio shows later, KISC, KISC MyHealth.com is a wonderful, it's almost like an encyclopedia for the people in the natural ingredients industry and people related. And Stephen's done a fantastic job, including today. So I want to say thank you to our corporate sponsors, for those people who have sponsored us before, and certainly for future corporate sponsors. I want to say thank you to our guest today. As you'll hear, he's going to be exciting. And then also I want to say thanks to our listeners, both active and passive. But I really want to say thank you to Stephen Lukowski, for whom this would never have taken place. And he does it every single week, and we bring on some great people, and everybody learns a lot more. But it would not happen if it wasn't for Stephen Lukowski. So join his LinkedIn, listen to the show, share with a whole bunch of other people, and enjoy this one. Stephen, take it away.
Thank you, Peter, and hello to everyone out there listening to the show today. It's another amazing opportunity to interview our next North Star super legend in the natural product industry. And before I make that announcement, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for all those listeners who've been tuning in. It's almost 2 years, Peter, now, coming up, that KISC My Health has come on radio. And we've gone over 100-plus, interviews, and we keep going. We got people calling and asking to be interviewed, and I'm just so excited about all this, because it's not about products, it's not about companies, it's not about services, it's about the people behind the scenes. That for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we've interviewed people, and they come on, they tell their journey, they share their success story. What a beautiful way to say, in over an hour, all their life accomplishments, their success stories, their ups and downs, their families, their backgrounds, to just acknowledge, them, and this is why we did the show, right? Because of the James Gormleys, the Michael McGuffins, the Stephen Fosters of the world, and many more who moved on. We take their torch and we light up the natural product industry in remembering them, but also honoring the people, who've been in this natural product industry that have opened the doors for the younger generations now to step in. They are truly, I would call them transformational leaders, role models, inspiration. Their motivational messages will guide the younger generations for further years ahead to create their own footprints in the sand. So I'm excited to be able to talk about Whole Foods Magazine, our corporate sponsor, who've been with us right from the beginning, Heather Weiner and the group over there. And it's without their support, we would not be here. So thank you to Whole Foods Magazine. Thank you to our past corporate sponsors and our current ones, Pure Brands, the Organic Sweetener Company. They've done a great job for us, and they continue to be leading the way in the organic sweetening space. And then Planet Cranberry is coming on board, and Planet Cranberry is going to be an e-commerce store where everyone can be able to get their cranberry and products directly online. So we'll be talking about that in the near future. But once again, RFI Ingredients, they stood up, and they've been there for us. And, and Joe Bradley, the Step Change team, on and on and on I can go, of who people have actually said, Steve, we want to participate. So this is a not-for-profit show. So remember that. This is all about giving back time to help others understand that it takes determination, true grit. It takes commitment, dedication, passion, right? In order to be able to climb this ladder in the natural product industry, because people are not doing it for money, that's for sure, right? They're doing it because they believe in the health and wellness of others. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our next superhero, super champion, leader in the natural product industry, Alex Lam. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
It's been a while.
Thank you for having me on. Yes, it has been. Great speaking with you again.
Oh, it's fantastic speaking with you, Alex. And I've known you now, I think 25 plus years. We got into this business, and It's just an honor that that you found time, because I know your schedule is so busy, like a lot of other people out there, that you want to come on and spread the good news, right, of your career, and give good solid advice to people who are listening today. So thank you so much, Peter. Do we have a radio commercial we want to break to first before we go?
Sure do. Absolutely. We're going to be right back after this quickie commercial break.
You've been listening to the KISC My Health Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. This KISC My Health Radio Show is also available on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, as well as dozens of other platforms connected to the Internet. If you are interested in the world's best cranberry product line, you will want to get your ingredients from Captain Cranman himself, Stephen Lukowski, from Planet Cranberry on planetcranberry.com. The website will be online before the end of the summer in 2026. Start your ordering and your inquiring about Planet Cranberry now by contacting Stephen on LinkedIn or by phone or text. The king of cranberries, Stephen Lukowski, has always been your best source of products and information. So now it's time to get your ingredients from Planet Cranberry directly. With Planet Cranberry and Stephen Lukowski, you can make your world a better place and help others do the same.
Now, back to our KISC My Health radio show. Take it away, Peter.
And we are back with Planet Cranberry, Captain Cranman, Stephen Lukowski, and a special
what a
guest.
surprise that is. Wow.
Yes. Yep. So looking forward to future radio shows on Planet Cranberry, but Stephen, take it away.
Thank you. Up and away. Captain Cranman here with Alex Lam, who's our superhero guest today on KISC My Health Radio. So, Alex, I know you, and there's a lot of people out there in the natural product industry that knows you, but there are people right now listening that go, "Who's Alex Lam? Why is he on this show?" So, if I may, I just like let our listeners know. Let me just go over your bio with our listeners so they understand who you are and the importance you bring and to the natural product industry and what you've accomplished. So Alex, through the sponsorship of a local church, Alex immigrated to the United States with his family in 1980. As one of 10 children, he arrived with no money, no English, no familiarity with American culture, but with a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to pursue the American dream and build a better future. Raised in a spiritual household where compassion, gratitude, and service to others were core values, Alex developed a mindset that would later shape both his leadership style and career. Now, before entering the dietary supplement industry, Alex and his brother built a successful automotive business. His transition in the supplement industry began with Nutrilite, the nutrition division of Amway, and one of the world's largest nutrition companies. So all to our listeners out there for MLM, this is a great interview for you to listen to. So what started as a career opportunity became a passion. Initially skeptical about dietary supplements, Alex gained firsthand exposures to the science, research, and investment behind the dietary supplement products. He came to appreciate the industry's ability to improve people's health and quality of life, a mission that has kept him committed to the industry for more than 15-plus years. Alex was blessed to have worked with companies ranging from entrepreneurial contract manufacturers to global multi-billion-dollar organizations. Along the way, he built a reputation for professionalism, integrity, and treating business partners with fairness and respect, qualities that helped him develop better lasting relationships throughout the dietary supplement industry. As a procurement and supply chain supplier leader, he became known for driving continuous improvement, developing high-performing teams, and helping organizations operate more efficiently. Throughout his career, Alex observed a common challenge: a talented professional spending too much time on repetitive administrative work instead of strategic, value-creating activities. As an artificial intelligence emerged, which we'll be talking about today, he saw an opportunity to combine his experience with his passion for helping organizations work smarter, not harder. That vision ultimately inspired him to found Camongd Solutions, and which Alex will talk about, with a mission to help companies thrive in an increasingly competitive world by leveraging AI to increase productivity, improve profitability, and empower employees to focus on higher value work. For Alex, this is the natural extension of the work that he's always cared about, helping people. While the dietary supplement industry helps improve lives throughout the better health, his company helps the people behind those products become more effective, productive, and successful. His journey from immigrant roots to industry leader to AI advocate reflects the belief that meaningful progress comes from continuous improvement, gratitude, and helping others succeed. Thank you, Alex. That is a beautiful file that you sent to me, and it doesn't tell me, the other side, how humble you are, because you are gifted with a servant leadership style. You have been blessed to put other people's needs ahead of your own. You have that giving heart, and I'm just so thankful that you are now going to help companies out there, through the AI jungle, right? and taking your next best 10 years that are going to happen to you to a higher level of success. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Stephen, for sharing all that. It's an honor to be able to help people. It's great when I see the results and seeing people smile and making their work easier. It's very rewarding for me.
Yeah, so let's talk about early childhood, where you were born, and let's go from there, because it's just your story of resiliency here. I'm very inspired by.
Okay. Well, I mentioned I'm from a family of 10. There's 12 of us, 5 boys, 5 girls, and we were what you call boat people. We were immigrants. We immigrated to the U.S. starting back in 1979. We were sponsored by a local Baptist church. It took us a total of 9 months from leaving Vietnam until we got to the U.S. We stopped by Indonesia, jumping from one island to the next like a pinball machine game until our paperwork were finalized. And then from there we went to Singapore, and then Singapore flew to San Francisco, and then to LAX. And so when we got here, as you mentioned, we were poor. We didn't have any money. We didn't speak English, and we didn't know anything about the U.S. culture. Unlike other families, my dad is part Chinese, so we were able to leave freely as opposed to escaping. But the caveat is that we just had to forfeit all of our assets. So, when we got here, there was, we were fortunate to be on welfare, the government program, and I know there's a lot of people out there saying that people take advantage of it. And having been a social worker myself right after graduating from college, there are people who take advantage of the program, but there are also a decent percentage of families like ours that benefit from it and help us get on our feet. And so that was pretty much how we started it all.
Now, let's talk about your mom and dad, right? You didn't have 10 kids there. You had more family over here? Or did you start with children over there?
Yes, my uncle and grandmother, they came 5 years prior because my uncle was part of the armed forces helping the United States. So they were the first wave, and then they picked up aluminum cans and trash cans, saved up money, and got the sponsorship from the church and bought us tickets from Singapore to the U.S. So when we got here, there were a total of 12 of us, combined with my grandmother and uncle, 14 people in a 1,200-square-foot home with 3 bedrooms. So you could imagine how tight it was in the house. But we managed to make it work, and my parents were workaholics. They had multiple jobs. My mom was an assembler, minimum wage. She would work an hour and a half away down in San Diego, but she comes home. She would, along with my 5 sisters, prep and cook dinner, and after we had dinner, the whole family would get around the table. My mom would bring home additional work, and we helped her assemble more products for extra income. And then in the backyard, she would grow vegetables and all that, and which we used to sell to local Asian stores. And so that's how hardworking they were, and that's what they instilled in me.
That the hard work and the true grit and the sacrifices that you're talking about.
Yes,
here.
I think more importantly, the gratitude, the appreciation that the United States, regardless of what people say, it's an amazing country. We love it. Without the U.S. kindness, we would not be here to have this opportunity. And to all those people who serve in the armed forces, we thank you. And I am sorry that there's a lot of people who passed away as a result of it. But please know that because of your efforts, there's millions of Vietnamese people who are given a second chance to have a better life. Because I have been back to Vietnam on many occasions, and I realized that regardless of how hard they work, they would never have the opportunity like they would here in the U.S. So, it's sad that most Americans don't have the opportunity to leave the country and then come back. I think if they should have that opportunity, they would realize how lucky and fortunate they are to be living in this great country.
Yeah, it's it is a great country. There's no question about that. But it's the people have made it great, and I'm so blessed that that through the sponsorship of your church, right, that you and your grandparents' supports and have been able to bring you here, because look at what your family has accomplished. Do you want to share that a little bit? 10 kids today. You want to talk about the family, your siblings?
Yes. So, like I said, I have 4 brothers, 5 sisters. Growing up was very difficult. There's a lot of hand-me-downs. It was very difficult to adapt, because we didn't speak the language. So pretty much my elementary years and junior high was all about adapting and assimilating. But one thing that stood out for me was my first Christmas here in the United States. It was the fondest memories I've had, and by far the best Christmas I had. The same local church that sponsored us, they during Christmas they adopted us, got us a Christmas tree. They brought us food and gave us presents, and that was the first for me and my family. We've never had any of that. It was so touching and moving and so embedded in my mind that it made all the other challenges that we had growing up a blur to me. So as a result of that, after that, my family and I started adopting other families for Christmas as our way of saying thank you and giving back. And, I'm going to share a recent story. Recently, when I was at Catalyst, what I would call like a trifecta win, my team, during Christmas, we had a white elephant party, something that I like to do with my team to build camaraderie and create a culture. And they asked me, what did I want from Santa? And to me, that's kind of proof that they appreciated my leadership skills and all that. And I told them I wanted to adopt a family for Christmas. So we reached out to a local church. We adopted a family of 3 girls and a boy, and the mother and dad. Each person was assigned to a member. So I was assigned to the dad. We got them food, clothes, and then presents from everybody. So it was a treat that, they all enjoyed it. But to me, what was most rewarding was not only that the family now had the opportunity to celebrate Christmas, but for me to see the effort and the joy that my team put into it. I felt like they got something out of it as well. So that's why I say it's a trifecta win-win-win, because I won because I got my present. The family won. They got a Christmas celebration, and my team won because I think it was their first time doing something like that, and they enjoyed it immensely. So,
well, Alex, the church, the Baptist church, does it still exist today?
Yes, but we have not kept in touch with them since we moved. My parents, as I mentioned, they were very hardworking. They had multiple jobs, and after a few years being on welfare and working hard, they saved up enough money. So we moved from Orange Placentia to Anaheim. So we moved away. So only after a few years of being here in the U.S.
Right. Well, do you remember the name of that Baptist church?
No, I do not. I was 5 at the time, so excuse me.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, to all the churches out there, that Baptist church, is more of a role model, an inspiration for the immigration opportunities of bringing people over and sponsoring. And so thank you to all the people out there who belong to churches that are doing what Alex is talking about, sponsoring others who are in need. And even if it's not for immigration purposes, just lending a hand and being there to put food on the table, clothes on the back for people, and a roof over their head is so important, because united we stand, right? That's what America is about. And and so, and unfortunately, today, we're going through challenging times because I've never seen a country so divided as it is today. But it's still the people. The people are special in North America, Canada, U.S. We're brothers and sisters. We have to find ways of all working together, which we've been doing in all these past years. Immigration is so important because my grandparents came in. They were sponsored. They had no cell phone given to them, no money in their business account. They came over poor, like you were talking about, and they had a new culture, a new lifestyle, and I'm here today because of them. So the sacrifices, and so you and I have a candle that's lit, that basically goes out there of gratitude. All right, showcasing help to give back and never forget those who've helped us. And
exactly, and gratitude is extremely important.
Yeah, and a positive attitude. I look at people say, "Well, I've had a hard day." Well, what's a hard day? To you, and everybody has a different definition of a hard day. I don't think they know what a hard day is until they had a hard life, so I know that there's other people out there share a similar story to what you have, and and may not be 5 siblings, of sisters and brothers, 10 in total, but at the end of the day, families have made sacrifices, and they for us to have a better life, Alex. And
exactly, and yes, there's always something to complain about, but there's always something to be grateful for. So I think all perspective, I think, is the most important thing. Because you could complain all day, I could complain all day, but it doesn't really do any good. But if you express gratitude and appreciation for everything else that you have, your health, your family, whatever the case may be, I think that's the better approach.
Yeah, and the other part of it too is forgiveness. I think if people learn to forgive others, all right, and not live a life of bitterness. And not live a life of why me? I think we every day we wake up, it's a gift of life, a gift of hope, a gift of opportunity, right? And but I think it's we all are special, we're all unique, we're all got hidden talents within us, and we'll talk about this because I think the leaders out there like yourself. You're blessed with that opportunity to bring out the best potential in others in that role, and you shape and you help those people grow to become North Stars like yourself. And so this is really important for people to understand that, you have to let, yes, there's setbacks, there's challenges, there's risk in everything we do, and there's ups and downs in our life, both personally and professionally, but there's a whole group of people, whether it's your church or your friends and your neighbors, everybody, I think, we're here to help each other. especially in our natural product industry, Alex. I've seen so much of giving hearts in our industry. People who really, at the end, they may not do business together, but they are people that pray together. There are people that are actually, helping one another succeed, right, and helping them through those difficult times that you're talking about. And so I congratulate all those natural product leaders that have come onto our radio show, because they're world change makers, they're history makers, they're transformative leaders. And I think that this is what excites me, is that if we have a show like this, we're bringing people on like yourself as a star that illuminates and shines a spotlight on the rest of us, that through, like you said, make America great again, all right, or make, America's a great country, all right, that go out there and help others, be kind and good to other people, and never forget, that there's people from our grandparents to our parents that have made the sacrifices to give us life, and that's something, like you said, life to be grateful for.
Yes, and even if you have challenges in life, and we all do, my philosophy is, it's those type of challenges is that what makes you stronger and build character. So even though I did not really appreciate going through what we went through, but I'm very grateful that we did, because without it, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so, again, it's about perspective. I could complain that I went through that, or I could express gratitude that because of that, I am hardworking. I put my head down, and I just work hard and just appreciate the opportunities that people give me and all that. So, for all those who are struggling out there, it will be, you'll get over it. And when you look back in the future, you'll realize that because of those challenges, it made you become stronger.
Yeah, what do they say? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger out there.
Yes.
Old cliche, right? But I and just know that you're not alone. You're not the only one going out there. There's always, remember, you never know. If somebody is unhappy with whatever reason, just know you don't know what's going on in their mind. You don't know what's happening in their life, right? You have to have an open mind when somebody, decides to cut you off in the front of your car, right? Or somebody is just rude at the cash register. You pray for people, and you hope for the best in people. And I've always said that, Alex, that if I choose to ignore bad behavior. I just I look for the good in everybody, and I don't respond, because I think when you respond to bad behavior, you it's a sign of weakness to me, because I think at the end of the day, if you choose to ignore it, I think it's an intellectual side, because you learn from it. I think we need people that out there, the good, bad, and the ugly, in the sense of we appreciate the good people out there, and you can't have a bad day, right? So
yes,
but,
and kindness is contagious. Just imagine in the morning you see somebody and they dress nicely, and you compliment them. You tell them that, oh, you look great today. And guess what happens? It made that person feel better. The next person that they interact with, they will, because they're in a good mood, they will have a pleasant interaction with that person, and then it continues on. It spreads on, versus you criticize someone in the morning and they're already in a bad mood. The next person they interact with, it would be in a bad mood. And so because of you can make somebody's day, and then it kind of continue throughout the day, or you could ruin somebody's day. And it's up to you how you want to approach it. But the best part of it is that complimenting someone, I'm not saying doing it artificially, I'm saying it do it uninhibitedly, meaning don't hold back. If you really think someone has a nice shirt or blouse and they look good, compliment them. It's free, and it makes them feel better. That's the best part, that it's free. And I don't know why people don't compliment others. They feel as if they're less than that person if they compliment them. But to me, it's it's contagious. kindness and compassion is very contagious.
Yeah, it's even a smile. Like, if you're not going to say something, just smile at someone. Right? A smile is contagious. Right? And I see so many people walk around like zombies out there, and they're
yeah.
whatever's going on in their mind, but they don't even say hello. They just walk right past you, right? And they, it's like, are you kidding me? It's just the way it is. It's a different world today than it was. We were talking about as children in the past, growing up in the playground, and the simple things gave us the greatest pleasures, and that we were always without because we never knew what it was meant to be without. We had friends.
Yeah.
We played games.
Yep.
We didn't look in our life of the wealthy of what they had. We looked at just being able to be in love with our family and have a food on the table, and to have traditions. Do you remember? Hey, do you have a favorite tradition, a Vietnamese tradition that you guys celebrate every year?
Well, most Asians, we celebrate the Lunar New Year. So that's typically February of every year, February, sometimes January, February. So that's the Lunar New Year is kind of like the Asians' version of New Year. So that's our tradition. But now that we've been here in the U.S. for so long, I've been here now 45, 46 years. We have the same tradition like every other American families, which is Christmas, Thanksgiving, things like that.
Well, having a large family such as yourselves, like, how do you keep together? How does that? Who's the crazy glue that puts everybody together in the family? There's always somebody.
Yes. Growing up, it was kind of tough because you have so many kids, and it was all hand-me-down. We didn't have anything new. But now that I'm older, I appreciate having a larger family. And, ever since my parents passed away, my family, we became tighter. And when all of them bought their homes, they all bought their homes within a certain number of miles radius from my parents' home. And so nowadays, what we typically do is we rotate homes. One family would host and another family would host, and so we kind of just rotate.
Yeah, that's beautiful when you think about that. And how many, like, you're married now with children? I'm sure they've grown up. You want to talk about them?
No, I'm actually single. I could barely take care of myself, let alone a family. No, I'm joking. Everyone in my family are married with kids, so for me, I'm single, and I have 19 nephews and nieces, and I'm the favorite uncle, so I don't want any of my own. I did at a younger age, but now being 52, I would prefer to be an influence in my nephews and nieces.
Oh, you're still young enough. It's like they'd be married. Wow. Hey, listen, I know people in Quebec, they've been together for 20 years or 15 years or 10, whatever, and they're not married. All right? But they're still living together. All right? So they don't want to get married. They're happy the way it is. So everything's different. I'm single, and I look at my family. I think we're blessed, you and I, in different ways of what we do out there in our life. Life has, given us a pathway that we follow, and I my nieces and nephews, they're my family, and they and the natural product industry is my family, and I look at other ways that the good Lord's blessed me to be able to go out there and bring happiness and joy and back into this world, and each and every day I try that it's religiously. I try that. I try to be that inspiration, that person of motivation to help others. But I still think my best years are ahead of me in life. Right? I don't look at my age at all, and I look at the opportunity of just breathing and living, because I know people younger than me have passed away. And I think, wow, the Lord had plans for them elsewhere. So, hey, let's.
And I can vouch for you. I can vouch for you, Stephen, because every time I see you at trade shows, you are full of energy, and so I love it. I hope you continue and spread that energy. It's really amazing.
Thanks, Alex. Listen, I get my energy by being around positive people, and I think that's contagious. When you're positive, the whole world smiles with you. And I think that people, you want to be miserable, hang around miserable people. I think misery loves misery out there. But that's not for me.
Yeah.
I've got a mission.
Law of attraction.
Right? Yeah. Hey, Captain Cranman from Planet Cranberry is on a mission, right? So
yes.
And I'm out there to make this world, not just a healthier place to live for others, and I'm out there to help people understand that that they're all blessed with beautiful gifts, and all we have to do is go out there and just appreciate what we have, not what we don't have, and go out there and help others, and other people are less fortunate, like you were talking about earlier on, and it's our time to give back. Right, and that's how I look at each day. What can I do to help others in need? And so that's I look out my life window a little bit differently, than others. But that's okay.
That's positive. That's very healthy. You have, a serving mindset, a positive mindset. If you're sincere and compassionate, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. So okay, let's go. I want to swing into your first job, all right? Can you recall that your very first job as a child or as a teenager, growing up, and let us know about that experience.
Yes. So, like I said, because we were poor and there was 10 kids in the family, there was no such thing as allowances. So, my first job when I turned 16 was for Carl's Jr. I think people in the South or on the East Coast, it's called Hardee's. I worked during my 9th and 10th grade in high school, and when I turned 18, around my 11th, 12th grade, I worked as a collector for Bank of America at nighttime. So I would, after school, go to work and then wake up early, work on my homework, and, I'm one of those students, and I happened to, and luckily enough, to graduate third in my class, and with perfect attendance because I just loved school. I was in student government, and so and I had a great teacher who I consider one of my 3 mentors. Her name is Miss Mayetta, or now Mrs. Weinberg, and I still keep in touch with her today. I talked to her a couple months ago and went to her birthday, but she made an impact on my life, and so she helped me build that growth mindset. So, yep.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about that. It's the mentorship side. How important is being a mentor? I know you are, but in your growing up, you said she made a tremendous impact, right? How important is it for our listeners to know that mentorship plays an important role for your personal development?
I think it plays an important role. It depends on how much you put into it. And I think if you are interested in finding a mentor, find one that have attributes that you admire, that you want. But it's important to find one that you respect and admire, because if you don't have those two, your interaction, it will eventually, you might accidentally say something that will reflect otherwise. But there's a lesson, in my opinion. You meet people for a reason, and when you do have a mentor, be honest and sincere with them. Ask them for their permission, and if they say yes, listen to them, be respectful to them, and just remember what they taught you, and always remember who taught you that. And so, but at the end of the day, it depends on what you make of it. You could learn a lot from it, or you could just not learn anything. So it all depends on the individual. And so for me, I was lucky enough to have 3. I wouldn't call them formal mentors, meaning I didn't ask them to be my mentors, but I consider them as my mentor because there were lessons that I learned from them, whether they knew it or not. But so I had Mrs. Weinberg for high school for personal growth. I had my sensei, Rob Spencer. He's for martial arts. He helped me with my spiritual growth. And then in my career, I had Jeff Myers and Mariana Romiti, both who I met at when I worked at Nutrilite. They helped me with my career growth. So I was very blessed to have people like that in my life.
No, it's amazing how the good Lord brings people into your life when you least expect it, and to help you. And but you have to be teachable too, right? I think that's for listeners out there, how important to be teachable, no matter what age, to always have an open mind and open hearts. And because people who come into your life, they're either there for a reason or season or a lifetime, but you'll learn something from them. And so I think
humility is important.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about now the natural product industry. Did the natural product industry pick you, or did you pick the natural product industry?
Well, before I joined the industry, my brothers and I had our own business, the automotive business, a brick and mortar, and it was very successful for several years until the market took a hit. So it kind of forced me to go out and get a job, and I was looking for a small to mid-sized company where I could work, and I was very fortunate to have gotten a job at a company called Nutrilite, not knowing who they are or what they do, but it turned out to be this big multi-billion-dollar company that opened a lot of doors for me. So that's how I started within the dietary supplement industry.
Well, wait, what was your first job with them?
Buyer. I was on a contract role as a buyer, and Mariana Romiti was the sourcing manager, so I learned a lot from her. And Jeff Myers, he was also with the company. He was the supply chain manager, and I admire him, how smart he was, and I knew that he worked out early in the morning, at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and so wanted to get to know him. I woke up early and tried to go to the gym at the same time he did, and we eventually became friends, and that's how it started.
And what do you remember about Jeff the most that you were attracted to in terms of his leadership skills?
How he carried himself in meetings and how he talked to people. He treated people with respect, very calm demeanor, knew what he was talking about, and he's not one of those that would jump in and talk right away. He would think before, he would pause and think before he responded to people, and he treated people with respect. I think that's very important, regardless of what level you are. He treated everyone with respect.
Yeah, I think that, well, okay, in your definition, please tell me what you mean by that so people understand what the word respect means.
Meaning he values, regardless of what your position are, whether you are a contract worker like myself or you are a data entry person, whatever you have to say, he takes it to as if a manager said it. It doesn't matter if your idea, everyone's idea from his perspective are good ideas unless they're not good ideas. But he listens to it. He doesn't dismiss it. And he doesn't put people down. He will be very encourageable and very positive and inspire people.
I think that. Thank you for sharing that, Alex, because I think that's important that people understand that the value that when you're out there, look for people who value you. All right, look for people that that, like you said earlier on, that are kind, that have a giving heart, that want to see you succeed, that don't live your life through let them control your emotions. And I think a lot of people,
exactly.
Maybe lack of self-confidence, that if they're in a wrong culture, wrong environment at work, that could have a negative impact on them if they allow that.
Exactly.
Everybody, yeah, everybody has stress in their life. Everybody is pressured, for numbers, right? To make sure they bring profits to the company, and that, and I think it's so important with the people working within that circle of that company, that look at each other as people first, not number signs.
Yeah. Exactly. We work 8 hours a day. We are at work more than we are at home. So, as a leader, I try my best to make it enjoyable for my team, but also stimulating, helping them grow and all that. So that's why I have the Christmas white elephant party with my team. We dress up for Halloween. We had potlucks that eventually started with our department and spread to include other departments. But I was trying to build a culture where people wanted to go to work, not because they have to, but rather because they wanted to. And the more you invest in them growing, the more engaged they will become. So I would typically have a training program for all of my teams, which is broken into two. One portion of it is to help them to become a better buyer, and the other portion, I call it cross-functional training, which is pretty much helping them understand the overall value chain of a finished product, showing how each department contributes to the finished product, and helping them learn the roles and responsibilities of each department, so that because when we meet with different departments, we only meet with them for 1 hour, and we only have a small understanding of their scope of work. But they have many other responsibilities that we're not aware of. And so when we're waiting for a documentation from a department and they're late, it's easy as human nature to get frustrated, to complain, why is it taking this department so long, and having all these be frustrated. But if you understand that they have all these other responsibilities that they have to do, rather than getting frustrated, you become more empathetic, and you become more patient when they don't get things done on time. And for me, having that kind of mindset fosters and nurtures a collaborative and teamwork culture. Without that, people end up getting frustrated, and then at the end of the day, everyone loses. So, which is not the goal of a leader. The goal of the leader is creating teamwork, collaboration, and synergy. And so that's why I include a cross-functional training for my team.
And well said. I'm going to say from a sales perspective, out there, the ingredient companies that are trying to, change the world with their science-based ingredients, and then they have to knock on the door of a Nutrilite, and or whoever else out there. It's that. You have something that you think is special that you want to get in front of the buyer, or the product developer, or the marketing team, or the innovation side. Trying to reach people today, right? Making calls to get feedback, emails to get feedback. Can you explain to our listeners why, sometimes you don't get that call back, or somebody says they're going to call you back and then they don't call you back? What's going on the inside? Because you've been there.
Yes. Okay. Great question. So, being in procurement, we interact with pretty much every department because everything the company buys goes through procurement. So we interact with R&D, product development, quality, warehouse, finance, pretty much every department we touch. So we have a lot of internal meetings. We also have meetings with all of our vendors. So within any given day, we have on average 4 to 5 meetings a day. So that leaves pretty 3 hours of working time. And so you have emails from internal stakeholders. You have emails from your vendors. And when you have hundreds of vendors, especially when you're working for a contract manufacturer with 400, 500 vendors, thousands of part numbers, you're having all that to get on a daily basis. Easily, you'll get 75 to 100 email. And so it's really hard to keep up with emails unless you work 80 hours a week like I did at my last company, or every job that I worked at, I always brought work home because there's no way you could get everything done at work. And so in procurement, it's just part of the beast that we're very busy. And unfortunately, we don't have time to meet with all of our vendors. unless it's critical. And so I always tell my team, at the end of the day, even though we control the wallet, treat every vendor with respect, be professional, be fair, because they are just trying to do their job. They have a family they have to raise. If you be honest with them, be fair with them, don't bully them, because there's a lot of rookie buyers out there. They get this power and they know how to use it, and they start being bullies to the vendors. But if you treat them kindly, when you need help from your vendors, they will be there, because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, you need your vendor to grow. Without your vendor support, a company cannot grow. And so, yes, they will stop talking when a buyer talks, but you need them as much as they need you. And so be polite. If you don't have time, don't leave them on. But sometimes I do miss emails, not on purpose, because I get so many emails. And so I'm saying this on behalf of all the buyers out there to all the vendors, please don't get frustrated if you don't get a response from us. When I get a vendor that I've never done business before trying to solicit business, honestly, I don't respond to them until 4 or 5 emails later, because I don't have time to cater to my existing vendors, let alone a vendor that I don't even know. And so, but it's the vendors who are persistent that consistently reach out and say, hi, I just want to let you know the market is going this, just an FYI. I think those type of approaches are the best. Don't try to sell it to me, but rather than saying, hey, did you know cranberry prices are going up? Or, hey, did you know, one sentence. If I need a product, I'll reach out to you. But if you give me some market intelligence that no one else is providing me, I will remember it, and I'll pay attention. And if something catches my eye, I will respond to you. And so that would be my suggestion to any sales rep that is trying to get the attention of the buyer is give them a 1-sentence or 2-sentence talking about the market or something to get their attention.
Yeah, thank you for sharing with that. I always say you're not selling ingredients, you're introducing value proposition. You're introducing
exactly.
a solution, that's solving a problem. And I think, every company wants to save money, all right, but they don't want to sacrifice quality in doing so, right? But it's okay to be maybe you're the second vendor of choice, all right? If you ever run into a problem, I'm here. All right, build a relationship. I always say your job isn't to be transaction oriented. Your job is to go out there and build a relationship of value, of who you are, what you can offer. All right, and build that relationship one-on-one when you go to trade shows, and not through emails, because that isn't going to happen.
You're right. You're right. Then. Yeah, and every customer is different. Contract manufacturers, they're more price sensitive, and so something about price will resonate with them more than the bigger brand companies like the Nutrilite, the Pharmavite of the world. To them, of course, saving money is important to everybody, but supply continuity is even more important. And don't bring up quality as a differentiator. To me, quality is a given. And so you're coming to me and telling me, oh, we have this quality. That's not a selling point. That's a given. So if you're using quality as a selling point, to me, you're not a value add. So I think it depends on what type of customers you're approaching. The bigger companies, they would prefer a value-added supplier who provides solutions, whereas a smaller company, they might prefer a price-competitive product. So just keep that in mind of who your audiences are.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. Peter, do you want to break for a quick commercial here? Because there's lots more I want to talk to Alex on.
So we're going to talk a little about AI. Commercial.
You've been listening to the KISC My Health Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. If you are interested in the world's best AI receptionist and AI business building platform, you will want to get your AI receptionist from humongous.com. Go to the specials page on Youmongus.com. That's YOUMONGUS.com/specials. Explore how small business owners and major corporations are using Humongous AI receptionists to do everything from answering incoming calls to scheduling appointments and even answering customer service questions. Your AI receptionist can do everything from making sure you never miss a call to texting reminders and follow-ups and even upgrading and closing more sales. Your AI receptionists will help you increase your productivity in just about everything. KISC My Health Radio suggests you have to check them out on the specials page on Youmongus.com. That's YOUMONGUS.com/specials. You can make your world a better place and help others do the same with the AI receptionists at Youmongus.com. Now, back to our KISC My Health Radio show. Take it away, Peter.
We are back with Stephen Lukowski. I've enjoyed this so much, your philosophy. I'm sure a lot of people really like to work with you, and I'm sure you've made a lot of careers along the way. So, Stephen, back to you.
Thank you, Peter. You may want to check your voice on the other end. All right? It's a little soft there from the distance.
Oh.
Right,
you know what? You're absolutely right. Sorry about that. I had my microphone above my head.
That's all right. I would like you to, since your MLM listeners, we brought up Nutrilite. Maybe you have a question or two for.
There's a big challenge in the MLM world, or in the world in general. The people with the wrong narrative have a tendency of winning because they're so vocal. And unfortunately, the MLM industry gives them enough information to be able to be that vocal. And many people sometimes they say the products in MLM are low quality. There's no standards. You can buy them anywhere. You can probably find them in the dumpster at the dollar store. And I know that with your level of experience, you could probably address that. So in relationship to your lifelong, stuff with Nutrilite and then probably some other companies as well, can you give us your opinion of some of the quality of the products in the MLM business world?
Was that to me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, no, I don't think MLM products or companies have lesser quality. Not at all. I think most raw materials, unless it's adulterated or it doesn't meet spec, are pretty much the same. I think what's most important is how you formulate the product, and I'll give you a perfect example. So if I was to give two chefs, a basket of the same set of ingredients, and I asked them to bake me a cake, the cakes that they give me, one could be amazing, and the other one would be subpar. So I think because certain ingredients, when you mix it together, creates a synergy. For example, CoQ10, which is for mitochondrial health, right? By itself, it's a great product. But when you combine it with PQQ, which is also for mitochondrial health, one builds it and one makes it stronger. There's a synergy. And so from an individual ingredient, I think, like I said, most of them, unless they're adulterated or does not meet spec, they're pretty much all the same. So the assumption that MLM have lesser, lower quality product, I would disagree with that. But I think at the end of the day, it's the finished product that's more important. And of all the companies I've worked for, I must say that ProCaps, owned by Andrew Lessman in Henderson, Nevada, his finished product by far is the best that I have known because he was a triathlete years ago, and he couldn't find any quality product, and so he decided to open his own company. And every product that is formulated at his company, he designed it himself because he knew the science behind it. He specifically sells on HSN, and rather than just trying to sell the product like most companies do, he educates his viewers on the benefits of each ingredient and why he's combining them together. And so hopefully that kind of answers your questions with respect to MLM, but no, not at all. There are some companies, though, and I'll give you an example, a green tea extract, right? Green tea extract, 30%, 50%, is an extract that has the active compound, whether it be EGCG, resveratrol, polyphenols. Those are important, but when a company just puts green tea powder, it doesn't mean that there's any active compound in there. It's just for window show. It's just kind of just to dress it up, make it look like, oh, I have green tea in there. But in reality, the active compound is what's important. And if there's no active compound in that product, you won't benefit from it. So it's important to look at the label and make sure that you're paying attention to an extract versus a powder. And there's usually a percentage next to an extract.
Thank you so much. Stephen, back to you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, on that. So for me, I look at, at the end of the day, you're right. Quality is given. Everybody has quality out there in the market, all right? But the problem is that quality may vary in terms of the price. And, because, science-based ingredients, as Joe Bradley from Step Change would always say, is the hardest thing to sell. Science-based ingredients, because people want the science, but sometimes they don't want the price to go with it. And the challenge to me has always been, how does the consumer end up getting the best product, not the best quality, but the best products that are science-based to them. And because if it doesn't fit a certain cookie cutter price model, all right, it doesn't get to the consumer, right? So welcome e-commerce. Right? I think e-commerce has played a great role of increasing the availability of products for consumers. Right? So what do you think about the e-commerce market today versus the brick and mortar?
Well, yeah, the good thing with the e-commerce is you can see testimonial from different customers, assuming that they're all genuine and not robots putting in the testimonials. But, because when you walk into a grocery store or any of the stores, there are aisles and shelves of different vitamin products. Even I've been in the industry for 15 years. It's really hard to know which brand to buy. And unfortunately, it comes down to marketing, how they make the bottle, the color of the bottle, the design of the box, the color, all that is what stands out. But when you buy online, it shows you the ingredients and it will show you testimonial from different customers. But try not to buy something that just tells you a word and there's no percentage. And I'll give it another example is probiotics, unfortunately, because I work for Deerland Probiotics and Enzyme, which is a great company. They specialize in that. And, the owner of that company, Scott Ravitch, would be the only CEO that I've ever met that I would say epitomizes true leader, where he pushes his VPs to the limit, but yet there's no complaints, no animosity. They continue working, and that's true leadership where he inspires them. But most probiotics, they're very sensitive to light and air, and by the time you bring it home and you don't refrigerate it, you leave it in your shelf, or it dies, it deteriorates. And so if you don't use it right away, months later, you're just taking a bunch of capsules that are dead. So that's why at Deerland, they have what you call a spore. A spore, it survives. It doesn't die like a typical probiotic, which is the majority of probiotics available in the market. That's why they use spores in gummy application, because it could withstand the heat, whereas a typical probiotic would die when you introduce heat to it. And so that's why you see some probiotic brands, it tells you to keep it refrigerated. But just keep in mind as a user, consumer, when you buy, do you buy a probiotic that it's the typical lactobacillus, which dies after a period of time, or you buy a spore, which is just bacillus. So one starts with L, which is what you don't want, but there's benefit. If you use it right away, there are benefits. But most of the one that if you're going to leave it in your shelf for a year, 2 years, a spore will still work. It's called bacillus. So it depends on what your needs are. But look at percentages. If you see a label that has 100 different ingredients and there's no numbers next to it, be careful because those are just powders. And a powder, a green tea powder, doesn't guarantee you anything. It doesn't say, hey, there's active compound in here. So it's just to make it look good. But if it says green tea 50%, 40%, that's what you pay attention to.
Yes. Thank you for sharing with us your advice and guidance on that for the consumer. Consumer needs to go out and do their own research. But when it comes to probiotics, put in that stability of probiotics, and spores, versus other strains. And educate yourself. Because AI is at your fingertips today. All right, to help you and guide you in the right direction. And I think that's, with you coming on board now in your new venture here, Alex, with AI, I want you to tell people what you are doing, all right, that's making a difference now and how you're going to be helping companies in the future.
Okay. So, having been in the industry working for manufacturers of all sizes from multi-billion-dollar to the last 3 companies I work for are all contract manufacturers that are from $50 million to $150 million smaller. One thing that I've noticed is that a lot of talented buyers and sourcing managers, they spend a lot of their time on the day-to-day repetitive tasks like issuing POs, following up on POs to get a promised date, getting it and then updating the ERP system, reaching out to vendors, getting documentations, saving it and renaming it and adding it to this folder. All that, one task, no problem. But as you are having hundreds and hundreds of POs, all those one individual task, it adds up. And I noticed that usually takes up around 30, 40% of their time to do all that. And sometimes you have to follow with vendors because their promise date change or which impacts production, which impacts the customer's order, so it's a ripple effect. And so they're constantly changing vendors for promise dates and documentation. So my AI system would be to automate all that. They don't ever, once the system will send the PO to the vendor, we'll follow up with the vendor, get the promise date, extract that date, update the ERP system. If there's any deviations from that, or if they will notify the buyer and then the buyer makes a decision, or they could do it fully automated. So all that is done by AI, and so it allows the buyer and the sourcing manager, it frees up their time to focus on more important things like strategies, cost-saving strategies, risk assessment strategies, continuous improvement strategies, things that they are hired to do as opposed to doing things that a administrator could do. So analogous to that, it's kind of like you hire a bishop or a pawn in a game of chess, and you have them doing a pawn's work, or a bishop or a rook, and they're doing a pawn's job, And so AI would do all that for them, from emailing, following up, updating the ERP system, requesting for documentation, extracting, making sure that it's the right document, saving it in the right folder, renaming it, and whether there's a spec or an RFQ, they either upload the spec or they put in the name, they'll search, and once they get a quote, they will put it into an Excel, compare pricing for the buyers. The buyers get to choose which one they like. And then AI would send an email, get the documentation, compare the spec to the internal spec, making sure everything lines up. If anything that does not line up, flag it and let the buyer know. And so the best thing about my system is that it allows the user to have full control, partial control, and once they are confident, they could give AI full control where they do everything automatically. But what's most important is that a lot of companies know that AI is important. It's here to stay, whether people like it or not. And whether you adopt it or not is up to you. But if you don't adopt now, you're going to fall behind. But the biggest concern they have is if I use AI and I share my confidential information, it will be out in the ether and others could use it maliciously. But my system is secured, is on your server, is localized. No one will have access to it. It's so they don't have to be concerned about that. That's the best part, and that's what differentiates my system from all the other systems out there.
All right. So, does that also include AI for product development too?
Include for what? I'm sorry.
For product development, when a company is looking to improve.
Yes. So for example, yes. So for example, R&D or product development, they're working on a effervescent product, and they're looking for a certain ingredient that the company doesn't currently have, and so you have to go source it. You can put it into my system because it has a huge database already. It will come back. It'll tell you who has it, and it could even automatically send an email to that company, get the quote, get the specification, get any and all documents that's needed, send it back to the product development person, and they have it. They could even request for a sample for the product development person. And so all that can be done automatically. And if there are certain criteria they're looking for, so for example, they're looking for an organic product or an NGP product or halal, kosher, they just have to put in the criteria and the AI will do the rest.
So really the AI is going to act as a sales agent, right, for the ingredient side of the business eventually.
The AI will be connected to all vendors, and the vendors, they do have contacts. So, for example, if you're a company and I come in and you just feed me, I'll be connected to your ERP system through an API. So I know all your vendors, I know all the products. So if you're looking for a product from an existing vendor that you didn't know it have, I reach out to that vendor, that contact that you have, and I'll ask them for that product. If your system does not have that product at all, then it reaches into another database that has the information, and then it will reach out to that company. And if neither database have it, it will then search the certain sites that I already provided. There's multiple sites that has like a platform that represents multiple companies. It will go search through there, identify it, send them an email, and attach a internal spec or internal requirements to that vendor. Say, this is what I'm looking for. Please provide me with a quote. When it comes back, they will share it with the buyer and or product development person.
Interesting. Peter, do you have a question on that?
The sourcing manager, they don't have to go and search anymore. They just have to punch in what they're looking for or upload. If it's an existing product and it's single source and they want to have two sources, they could upload a spec, or sometimes AI, you place an order and you want the order to come in on July 1st because you have a production run. The vendor comes back and says, I can't get it until August 1st. Well, that's too late. That will make the customer's order late. AI then could recommend that, hey, it's going to be late. This company has this. Should I reach out to them for a quote? So it could do that. Or if you get a quote and the price, let's say it's $50, but AI knows that the price is really $30 to $40. It could kind of hint to the buyer that price is a little bit higher than normal, and so it kind of consults the buyer more than anything as well.
Interesting. Well, it's a tool that aids in the assistance, Right, for sure, and I think it's needed, and I'm so glad that you're behind it in your business. Peter, you have any questions? Because I'm just going to share with you, Alex. I have a hard stop at a couple of minutes here, and I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for having the privilege of interviewing you. Peter's going to take over, but you are an amazing human being, and I am so glad you are in the world. To make this world a better place and a difference, an impact. And your brothers and sisters, I'm sure they're very proud of you, but more importantly, thank you to your mom and dad, your grandparents for bringing you in this world and giving you the opportunity to shine as that North Star that you have been doing so brightly. And
thank you. And
God bless you.
If anyone out there is interested, the name of my company is very easy to remember. It's spelled CAMONGD. So think of it as come on, God. But it's actually CAMON, which is come on. GD stands for God. And in Vietnamese, come on, CAMON stands for thank you. So it's pretty much thank you, God Solutions. So it's come on, GD Solutions.
I love it. Peter, I know you're fascinated about the AI. I know you have more questions. Continue on, all right? Big hug, Alex, all right, from me to you. My heart to yours, all right? And
thank you, Stephen.
Peter, take it over. You're welcome.
Perfect. So we're going to make sure that we put Alex's website in the show notes for this site. And, Alex, for the audience that might not be as savvy as you, could you explain to them, I think, probably the most beneficial thing that you said about that AI is, besides all your experience put into this, the idea that it's on their servers. So do you want to talk to people about that? Because that's something that should be underlined with exclamation points and everything else like that, especially in this world where so many mistakes are being made right now with AI, and so many people are hacking into different things where you might have some data breaches, and I can't imagine anything being more confidential than the records of a company. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So thank you. That's a great question. So most AI companies are connected through the cloud to access information. Mine is not connected to the cloud. It's localized on your computer, on your server. And so everything, so it won't be leaked out to anywhere. It's kind of like information on your personal computer. No one can hack into that unless they hack into your system already. So I can't say it's hack-proof because no company out there or no computer out there is hack-proof, but it's not connected to the cloud in that, or it's connected to the AI service like the ChatGPT and all that. So it's not available in the ether. It's on your server, and when it sends emails to customers, it's encrypted to the customer, and the customer has a key, and when they respond, it comes back encrypted to you, and so both two-way is encrypted both ways. So that's how it's protecting the data, because to me, I would not have built the system unless I could secure the data. That's the most important to every company. And so I think that's why this would differentiate it from every other company, is that security that's localized on your server and is not connected to the internet or the cloud for it to work.
I just really appreciate you kind of going through that, because I know, I'm a business owner, and I've been studying AI because everybody's probably been studying AI over the last decade, and certainly within the last 2 or 3 years, we've really been doing that. And we've even started with different companies for an AI receptionist, as you heard in our commercial. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the biggest problem that I have with a lot of companies that are using AI is they're using AI and they're on somebody else's servers, and they're prone to being either honest or not honest mistakes. So I really appreciate you doing that. And then the other thing is, in your estimation, how many either hours per week do you think it might save an individual, or how many employees might it save a company, or how much more productive might the same people be? So I know that's a layered question, but talk to us about the impact of your AI program on an individual and a company.
Right. So because of its capabilities, it could not only benefit procurement, but it could also benefit quality, regulatory, because documentation, because that's very time-consuming. So if I would just give an average, if a company, a contract manufacturer, for example, that has 200 employees with 4 or 5 purchasing team members, on an annual basis, it could save them up to $200,000 a year just because of how the automation part. And that's just saving the time, but now you have to remember, because they save $200,000 to $250,000 in time, now you're giving that extra time back to the buyer, which they could focus on more strategic things, or they could spend it not having to work long hours and spend it with their family. So they can have a better work-life balance depending on the owner of the company. So rather than needing 5 people, you only need 2 people to do the same amount of work.
Right. And the other thing is I don't think your AI needs a vacation or gets sick or has to call out or have to worry about emergencies. Your AI probably works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Exactly. It's constantly working.
Yeah. So now people can work, from wherever they want to or whatever and get all this stuff done. And, you have a competitive edge, I'm sure, over everyone else. The other unique thing for you specifically, I'm gathering, is you've done all of those things that you're expecting this thing to automate. So when you're designing it, you know it from the entry level all the way through the most advanced levels, all the possibilities for all the mistakes, all the common errors that might be made. You can probably, just glance at something and see if it might have made a mistake in your development and through your research and development of developing this product and moving forward, because there's going to be things that happen that need an eagle eye. I'm anticipating that you've probably got a pretty good handle on making sure that everything is going to be running smoothly. So this is very exciting. Quite honestly, and this is what AI was meant. This is what AI was meant for.
Exactly, and I think if you use it correctly, it could be very highly beneficial. And so when I designed this, it does a couple of things. It double-checks its work and triple-checks its work, but more importantly, it gives the control to the user. It doesn't start off being fully automated. It can be, but it allows the user to say, hey, I want the most control. I don't want you to send any emails. It could draft the email, and then the user could click send, or, so it could be a partial where 25%, the user has 75, 90% of the control, and they eventually reduce it to 75, 50, 25. So they could adjust how much they are involved in the process. But mine is not just PO management. It also looks at the market. So, for example, if I'm buying caffeine, regular buyers would just look at the caffeine market, right? But prices for caffeine, by the time I see the changes, it's a little bit too late. Most of my competitors are doing the same thing. I would look at the coffee market, because the coffee market dictates the caffeine market. So I look at the upstream, but then I took it one step further and looked at the harvest of coffee, the weather, whether it be a monsoon or which could impact the harvest of the coffee. So that's a 6-month view, so that if I know that 6 months in advance, I could buy it, whereas no one else would know about it. So you're locking in material 6 months in advance, knowing that because of this monsoon, it would impact the harvest, therefore impact the coffee, therefore impacts caffeine. So things like that, or it also looks at cross-industry. So, for example, the fracking industry, they used to buy a lot of gum acacia, which is used for gum fracking. But because it's more lucrative industry, they pay more money. And so a lot of the fracking gamma caser was allocated to the fracking industry. This is years ago, and as a result, the supply of gamma caser for the dietary supplement dropped dramatically, and the prices skyrocketed. So my AI also look at things like that, where our other industries, they're buying up things that are impacting this industry. So they look at that. They look at geopolitical issues, just as the war in Iran, and see how would that impact certain raw materials, the logistics. It looks at logistics itself. So it looks at four main things: weather, which impacts crops; upstream, which impacts the ingredients to make the actual ingredients you're buying; cross industry or other industries buying it. And it looks at geopolitical issues. So it looks at all that, but more importantly, things like resin that is used to make bottles that's publicly traded. It looks at the index market. It looks at the stock market and tracks the resin prices on a day-to-day, and you can refresh it whenever, but it looks at live to give you an idea of, okay, resin just spiked. So it provides the buyer the tools to plan in advance. So not rather than waiting until last minute and then react, which is too late. So I'll give you an example. When we had COVID, with PPE, a lot of companies didn't buy it. When I heard it, I buy all the PPE, a year's worth of material right away, because I know that it's not going to be available. But in addition to that, I locked in all the raw materials, a year's worth, right away, because the production people have the PPE, but if they don't have the raw material to make it, it's useless. But then that's what companies do as well. But I took it one step further because we had in-house testing. I got all the necessary testing equipment or testing material to test it, because if you have the raw materials to make the product, and you have the PPE for your production people to wear to make the product, but yet you don't have the material to test it, it's useless. So, a really good buyer, you have to look at different levels, not just the immediate level, upstream, downstream, across. You have to look at all aspects like that. Or another example would be, every year, the Lunar New Year, China, which dominates most of the dietary supplement, they shut down a month for a Chinese New Year. So that combined with the holidays, which happens during October, November, December, big companies start shipping things in July or a few months prior to October. And so from September until February, the supply chain or the logistics is all tied up. Price is going to go up. And so knowing that, I would procure things way in advance so that I'm not impacted by things like that. But a few years ago, China had the Olympics in China as well. And because of the pollution they had, they did this 8 years ago as well. They shut down all the factories within a 100-mile radius of the location where the Olympic is, to reduce the pollution. And so me knowing that that's going to happen, combined with the Chinese New Year, combined with the holidays, and then China also had an energy crisis issue, so they were forcing companies to cut back on their energy consumption. Knowing all that in advance, I locked in a lot of material in advance. As a result of that, a lot of companies were not able to deliver products to their customers. And so we gained a lot of new market shares as a result, because we were the only one that could produce and ship products. And so it's that kind of thinking that this AI will be doing that will give the customer the competitive edge over everybody else. Because if you wait like everybody else until the last second, it's too late. You're behind the game already. So you have to look at 6 months. You have to look at way in advance to be able to be to have that competitive edge.
So the way I look at it, you kind of discussed that you were like a little bit like that fortune teller. Like you could see what was going on in the future because you had been around for a while. For a new company without this product, they probably have a lesser chance of success and certainly lesser profitability because they're going to hit all the obstacles that you just said a little bit earlier. And you're going to be the one, like if I were a newer company, it probably might have even put me out of business because I didn't anticipate all the things that you just said. And I was outcompeted by people that knew the game. Now, with your software and your services, I can actually compete at the highest levels of the multi-billion-dollar companies, maybe even trillion-dollar companies coming up soon, but I'll be able to compete because I have this type of AI software headed by somebody like you who knows how to program it the right way.
Exactly. And to go and find a product, sometimes some products like colostrum, which is milk, breast milk from an animal or mother, is very hard to find. Some raw materials are very difficult to source. So it could take a sourcing manager days and weeks to find something, whereas on my system, it already has the database. It will tell you who has what, and if it doesn't, it will go and search very quickly because there's certain platforms that I already provided it that it could go and search through all those platforms first, and it cannot then search everywhere else. But so there's multiple sources that it taps into to be able to source a raw material for the user.
So I'm kind of speechless with the magnitude of the importance of having something like this, because it really does give that younger entrepreneur a chance to say, all those stories those old guys talked about way back when, those times don't exist anymore for me. Like, you can't be the next iPhone. You're not going to be the next, Windows operating system. All those opportunities are gone. With a product like yours, it really does give that high school kid the opportunity to be able to compete at a multi-continental company basis. And that's pretty exciting. So for all those new people listening in, this is exciting. And I'm going to share with you this. A lot of the older people that are less knowledgeable about this stuff are going to have the floors swept of them with these newer kids that are learning how to use AI in general anyway. So you take your product, their talents, their knowledge of AI elsewhere, and there's going to be some really amazing potential earnings and opportunities, and the consumers are going to benefit, and it's win-win all across the board, the way you kind of discussed the way you like to run your company. So
exactly, really, and I think thank you very much. And I think most importantly, some companies who truly cares about work-life balance, because you hear that a lot of companies say that, but a lot of them really don't live up to it. But the one that are truly sticking by that motto or mantra, by me freeing up the time of the buyers, now they have extra time. They don't have to work late hours. They could use that time to spend it with their family, so they can truly have a work-life balance. Like a company, when I work at Neutralite, they have the best working environment of all companies I've worked for, because they have every Friday off. And you never hear people say TGIF, but it's amazing if you're just adding an hour extra for all the other days, but having 3 days off, people came back and they were refreshed. They were happy. I mean, it's unfortunate not many more companies would adopt that. Or they also had a cafeteria where everyone eats, because a normal company, you only interact with a person from another department in a meeting, and it's only a 1 hour meeting. You talk a little bit and then you leave, but you don't interact, so there's no camaraderie. But when you have a cafeteria on site like they did, you would sit down and eat, and you could sit with someone from another department, and then you build that relationship. And so, I was very impressed with how they set up their system, and but that 4-day work week is amazing. And so hopefully, there's any small companies out there that believe in work-life balance and it frees up the time of the buyer. Give them that free time so they don't have to work late hours, so they can spend it with their family, as opposed to trying to increase output, or you could use that extra hours for anything you want, but it depends on the owner of the company.
Right. Well, and also I think they can shift their work schedule as well, because if somebody's got something to do during the day, a dance recital, a doctor's appointment, something that they have to do, their refrigerator's being installed, they'll be able to do all those things and then be able to work after hours if they wanted to, because this is working, on their terms. So as we wrap this up, I want people to be able to remember the domain name, and I want to make sure I got this right. So I'm looking at the domain name right now. It's CAMON, so CAMONGD Solutions.com. CAMONGD Solutions.com. You'll want to bookmark that. I know you've got a demo going on and a whole bunch of other things in there. This looks really exciting, and I'm so glad that I got a chance to speak with you as well as Stephen on the KISC My Health Radio show. This is very exciting. This is everything that AI was meant to be, as far as making a difference in people's worlds. This is great.
Thank you. And easy way to remember is just remember, come on, God, or CAMON is come on, GD, God. And please keep in mind that I am just building the demo. I am only half done. And so if you are on the site and you see the demo, it's only 50% done, so please excuse me. I just pivoted to this. It came to me less than a month ago, so I only started building this less than a month, so please forgive me for that. But if they have any questions, they could email me. My emails will be set up within the next couple of days, and I'll be more than happy to help them, because I want to get the demo done as quickly as I can, so in case people want to see what its capabilities are.
Excellent. Well, we may be following up with you as well. So
thank you.
I'm excited to be here. Just heard from Alex Lam. Wonderful story. Thank you so much. This was a great radio show on so many different levels. Thank you so much for being here. Stephen had to drop off. So for those people listening in, Stephen Lukowski, the king of cranberries, Captain Cranman, soon to have his e-commerce site, Planet Cranberry, set up. Alex, thanks so much for being here. We're going to catch everybody next time on the KISC My Health Radio show. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
You've been listening to the KISC My Health Radio show on Building Fortunes Radio. Thanks for listening. This KISC My Health Radio show is brought to you by Stephen Lukowski. Stephen is known as the Cranberry King, universally known as Captain Cranman. Stephen has over 30 years of experience working with manufacturers and marketers of dietary supplements and natural ingredients to make this world a healthier and a better place. You can check out Stephen Lukowski on LinkedIn and on the KISCMyHealth.com website. We are glad you listened in. Spread the word and check out previous KISC My Health Radio episodes. Bye for now. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. At Building Fortunes Radio, we wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work for. Now go make the world a better place.